before 1982, it was illegal for adolescents to run away. That meant if an adolescent ran away, he or she would be put in detention or one of the old girls' homes. In 1982, that law was changed, and the reason for that was for many reasons. The first of which was that it kept these cases out of the court system. It was felt that many of these cases didn't need to go right into the legal system, and a social service agency could probably intervene beforehand and save the court system from the overload and save the family from having to deal with that.
In crisis intervention, we're on call to the local police departments, the sheriff's departments, on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week. So our typical calls can come at any time of day or night. Most likely they're at night, between those hours that most people are sleeping. And when we show up at the police station, there's probably not one, perhaps, typical call, but some that can be generalized. Every family, every situation is unique in that sense. Oftentimes we'll work in crisis intervention between 4 to 6 hours at that initial call, working with the youth, working with the family, working with any other family members that might be there as well.
It usually starts with the Youth Services Bureau here in DeKalb, and depending upon the individual child's needs, there are other agencies out there, either private long-term facilities for either mental illness or some type of chemical dependency. There are many different types of institutions out there that deal with this. The police officer or the juvenile officer that's handling the case can make these suggestions to the parents or refer the juvenile and the parents to the Youth Services Bureau, and which we stay in constant contact with in communication and try to develop a plan to fit the individual child's needs.
Typically we get our cases from either the schools or from the police station. When we get called out to the police station, it means a youth has been found after running away, and we spend a lot of time trying to reunite the family. State statute mandates that we spend a lot of time reuniting the family. If that can't be achieved, and depending on how much we've had contact with that family or not, our next alternative is to try and find a mutually agreeable alternative placement. That's what happens in most of these cases. They go to a friend or relative's house and they stay there for a period of from 1 day to maybe a year. So during the time the child was in an alternative placement, we spent a lot of time doing family counseling with the child and its natural parents to try and work towards that goal of getting them back together, getting them back together, getting them back together. I basically have two different types of runners. I have the children who are running to and the children who are running from. The children who are running to are running out to go and have fun, and it's the typical adolescent that most people think of when they think of runaways. To 90% of my runners are runners from. These are adolescents that are running from something at home. It may be unrealistic expectations, such as an 11 or a 10 o'clock curfew for a 17-year-old on a weekend, or asking the child to babysit for the younger children in the family every night. But typically it's something greater than that. About 80% of my girls have been sexually abused.
How many times have you run away?
I have
Anywhere?
36 counts that I know of running away.
Noel, how old were you the first time you ran?
8.
8 years old. And how many times have you run away?
2.
2 times? How old were you the first time?
I think 14 or 15.
Did you run away by yourself or with someone?
Don't know.
The first
Oh,
time?
with someone.
That was
My sister.
your sister. The first time for you, Noel, did you run away by yourself or with somebody?
My first time I ran away by myself.
Did you know where you were going when you ran?
No.
Did you know did you have a place in mind where you were gonna go?
No.
Okay, so you were just, so you
I
were
was just
running away
going.
from something, you weren't
Yeah.
running to something. What were you running away from the first time?
I had many family problems. My stepfather was sexually abusing me, and I wanted to get away.
How long had he been bothering you before you ran?
Maybe 2-3 weeks.
2, 3 weeks? And did you try to tell anyone?
No.
So your first way to deal with that was to try to get away from it?
Yes.
Okay. When somebody talked to you, the first person like a social worker or policeman talked to you, did you tell them that's what was happening the first time you ran away?
No, it took me 4 years before I ever told anyone.
So you had to run away 10, 15 times before you told anyone that one of the real reasons you were running?
Yes.
Tell us what else was going on in your life at that time.
I had, as in my stepfather, he had saved my life before he started sexually abusing me, and I didn't like it. And so I had run away, and then I got involved with a couple of my brother's friends, and I started using drugs and alcohol. And I just kept away for a while, and then when I came home, more family problems kept coming up. I had my mom and my stepbrothers, and the divorce between my two real parents, arguing constantly, and the physical abuse in the family, and all the fighting and stuff. And I just couldn't handle it, and I just kept running away over and over.
So it wasn't the Brady Bunch then?
No.
The first time you ran, what were you running from, Ann?
My mom, mostly the family, just, our house was burnt down, and
How did it burn down?
my brother, supposedly was flicking a lighter, and the mattress caught on fire, and then the whole room just caught on fire.
Okay, so your house had burned down, you were living where then?
Well, the first couple nights we stayed at my aunt's and uncle's in Kirkland, and then we went to a motel, and then we moved in with my grandma. So,
But what happened that made you say, enough of this, I'm running?
my mom said, like, she'd forget to pick me up from school or something, and then when I'd say something to her about it, I'd finally come home late, and she'd yell because I hadn't done all this stuff, which it was because she hadn't picked me up and I hadn't had time. And then, so I just, she'd freak out on me, and I just couldn't handle it anymore.
When you say freak out, say what you mean by that. A lot of kids say freak out, I think maybe you mean something else.
She'd scream and yell, and I just didn't want to put up with it anymore.
In probably over 90% of the cases that we deal with, either the youth or the parents are involved in some sort of substance abuse or misuse. That statistic is very, very high in the families that we work with. There are also multiple kinds of problems, ranging from child abuse, sexual abuse, eating disorders. Parental conflicts, marital conflicts, are a large time then transferred as the problem to the youth or to the children within the family, and oftentimes it's not the youth themselves that are the focus or should be the focus of the problem. We really try to get to the heart of the matter as quickly as possible. Some people describe it as like peeling an onion, that all the outer layers are the parts that are exposed and the behaviors that are exposed, but what's really inside is what needs to be dealt with. And for some families, that takes a long time. Sessions might run, a typical session might be involved in meeting with the entire family, but then breaking up into some smaller sessions with maybe just the children. Certainly try to involve every family member because it affects every family member. Once we've met with the youth and the family, and if it is agreeable and it is in our judgment that reunification is a healthy thing to take place that night, we'll set up appointments, subsequent appointments, perhaps the following day, certainly intensive kinds of appointments over the next couple of weeks to meet with the family, to check in, to make sure things are going all right within that family. For example, sometimes youth might be a little hesitant. Well, mom and dad say that things are going to change. Or for the parents, they're hesitant. You know, their child says that they're going to change some of their behavior. They'll actually go to school. So we provide that intensive kind of follow-up service to check in with families, to help alleviate where there's been breakdowns in communication.
When I went into my first psychiatric ward, it took me a month for me to get anything out, and I thought I was going home, so I told one of my counselors there at the hospital that I had been sexually abused, and so I stayed in for another 2 months. And I don't think I really got out all of my secrets that were inside until this third hospital that I just recently got out.
So now you've been in a hospital 3 times,
Yeah.
and Ann, you've been in
I've just been in it once.
1 time. Would you say that going to the hospital helped you? You learned anything?
Not really. I mean, if I would have worked with the program, I probably would have learned something.
You were in for a total of 3 or 4 months if you had them all together?
No, I was in the first hospital 3 months alone. The second hospital I was in for a week, and third one I was in for 2 months. And if I would have worked with the program, I probably would have learned a lot, but I was too stubborn and wanted things to go my way.
You were in once for how long?
For a month.
And how do you feel about what that was like for you?
I don't think I learned anything in there. I don't think they helped at all.
Waste of time and money?
Yeah.
But you were in there because you ran away?
I was in there for family problems, running away, and trying to commit suicide.
Noelle, have you ever tried to commit suicide too? I've tried numbers of times. I've tried many ways too. I used to, after I finally figured out that I didn't have enough guts to go all the way through it, I just started slicing myself up, just for fun, you know, and I figured if I finally got desperate enough or depressed enough that since I already knew how to slice myself up and it didn't hurt, you know, it wouldn't be no big deal. So I ran away one time. I was 12 years old at the time, and I was with, this was in Elgin with my father, and I was with my boyfriend, and I found out I was pregnant, and I was on a lot of coke, and I knew it. I wanted the kid so bad, but it wasn't going to make it. For one, I was too skinny, and I was too young, and I had a lot of drugs and stuff in my system, and so I decided to miscarry purposely, and I jumped in a fight, and I was 3.5 months pregnant at the time, and I miscarried, and I was in the hospital for 2 days, and my father never even missed it. And I got out of the hospital, and to this day, my father does not know I was ever pregnant. My mom does. I told her, but
Station. If we can't get the parent and the adolescent to come up with a mutually agreeable alternative placement, then we have to place a child in a foster home. For that reason, I have found and licensed, in DeKalb County we have 4 foster homes. And that is always our last alternative, because if I place a child in foster care, that means I'm going to be taking them to court and letting the judge decide what he wants to do with the child.
It's very difficult. We have very few foster homes, and it's not a viable alternative in most cases to place a child in a foster home. From our experiences, when we reach a situation where either the parents do not wish the child back into the home or the child does not wish to go back in the home, the Youth Services Bureau attempts to negotiate a placement with the child and the parents. Usually that negotiation takes place here at the police department, and the child either goes back to his home or is placed with a relative.
We had seen commercials on TV where being foster parents and stuff. And was there an ad in the newspaper?
There was
or-
an article in the newspaper about the Youth Service Bureau and the work they were doing. And then there was a little blurb at the end that talked about, foster parents are always needed if you have any interest, contact. And that's when
we contacted them.
and told them we were interested. And one thing that really shocked me is I thought that we'd contact them and there'd be a real need and it'd be like, a few weeks and you'd have a child staying with you for a while. But I was shocked because it was 6 months before the licensing went through. You have to go through all this, interviewing process. They have to come to the home like 3 different times and inspect the home and interview you. You have to be fingerprinted. They have to do a whole background check on you to make sure that you're not a criminal and that you've had any other offenses. And so, it's really checked out thoroughly. So we started like in December and it was June before we had our first child come stay with us. So that surprised me. And he'd try and help really bad, like to do things in the kitchen, but when he'd do it, and I'd let him, but when he'd do it, it'd be like 10 times the mess to clean up, because he couldn't see what he was doing, and he'd spill things and he couldn't see it, or he'd grab a rag and try and wipe it up, and he'd have more of a mess, and it was really sad, but all he needed was some glasses,
But he was pretty sincere about what he was doing.
Oh, yeah. And he told us too, one of the clients that I work with, his wife knew the boy and had kept contact with him, and he had said something that, he said something to this man's wife that I couldn't believe it. They really loved me. I know they really loved me. And he was talking about us, that he could tell that we really loved him when he was here with us, And it wasn't like, I don't ever remember, grabbing him and saying we love you or anything like that, but I think it was just the fact that we could tell that we cared and that we really cared about him while he was here. Most frequently, it's that the phone rings in the middle of the night, usually probably like around 1:30 or 2 in the morning is the most common time. And it seems that happens because most of the time the counselors are working with the kids and the family, counseling them or trying to talk to them, get them back together, and things don't work, and probably like about midnight or after, they call it quits. And then by the time they get, things taken care of and call us, it's usually 1 or after in the morning. So a lot of times the phone just rings in the middle of the night. It's the counselor that's handling the case that's on the phone, and she just explains, he or she will call and say, this is so-and-so from, LSSI, and we have a 14-year-old girl that needs placement for the night. And then a lot of times they'll give us just a little background so we kind of know what the situation is. Like, she ran away from home and her parents are refusing to take her back, or she refuses to go home, so we need a place for her for the night. If they've never run away before and the parents or the child is refusing to work things out, there's like a 3-week minimum before it can be taken to court. So in that situation, the child can be in our care for 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
If they've run away once, I think it drops to 2 weeks. If they've run away 2 other times, I think it drops to 1 week. So it just goes to court sooner. And they do that because they say that the kids kind of learn the ropes and they'll learn the system and try just to get out of home and go live someplace else. They'll just keep running, So that's why they make.
Can you give some advice to prospective families who are thinking about doing foster care?
Well, it has its ups and downs, but boy, there sure are it has its ups and downs, but there sure are a lot more ups than there are downs. It's a very rewarding experience. Makes you feel good when you know that the child leaves, that you may have made a difference in that child's life, especially by the letters that some of them have left us.
And the contacts that we've kept with them, even though, like the one gal, she said, hopefully we'll keep in touch, and we haven't ever heard from her, and we might never, but, still, when she left, she'll probably always remember it. I don't think she'll ever forget.
The kids that come here are homeless, runaway, or throwaway youth, and so they need a multiplicity of services. When they come in, they are given a primary counselor, caseworker, and that person assists them in meeting all of their needs. Also, they are assessed by our team of specialists, and that's a mental health professional, a vocational specialist, an educational specialist, a health and AIDS person, and they are examined by Healthcare for the Homeless. We also have a substance abuse counselor that they see initially upon coming in. So their needs and their situation is assessed by all of those professionals, and then a treatment plan is developed that they work on with their primary caseworker. For some of the kids, that will include counseling weekly. It will include drug and alcohol counseling. It may include counseling with the AIDS and health specialist. So they can receive all these multiple services. Our goal with the kids is to get them to the point of employment and education so that they can eventually become independent and self-sufficient. Most of the kids that come here, they have already been to several foster homes. They have fallen through the cracks of a lot of different agency attempts to help their family and to help them. Most of the kids that come here are not interested in family reunification. Many of them have histories of physical abuse, severe physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse, or they may have parents who are addicted, and so they've been neglected through the years. So there's a lot of emotional damage, and for many of the kids, family reunification is not possible. However, when it is possible, we make efforts to have family sessions and work towards a plan of visitation and possible reunification. But for most kids that come here, the primary goal is independence and becoming self-sufficient. They usually have a lot to work out, though, historically, so we advocate a lot of counseling for them, as well as assistance with education and vocational. The kids that are 18 years old, however, if they become stabilized and they have a job or they're in school full-time or they're doing those two things part-time, they can qualify for our dorm residential program, and that's a transitional living program where they don't pay rent, but they have to save a portion of their paycheck, and then that goes towards their deposit on an apartment when they're ready to move. And they could stay in our dorm facility for a year before they would need to move on from there. So that's a real incentive program here for kids that are 18 up to 21 who want to become independent. It's like an intermediate step before they go off on their own.
Right now I'm homeless. I stay in the Neon Street dormitory, independent living program.
Okay.
And
How did you come in contact with the program?
through Horizons. Okay.
What is Horizon?
It's a gay and lesbian youth service. I would say the Neon Street Center is to be commended. They are one of the few youth programs that make you feel like you're home. I mean, the dormitory is excellent. When you think of shelter, I watched movies when I was younger, and I see the shelters on TV in New York and Chicago and Washington and California, and when the administrator explained to me, that you're going to be going into the dormitory program, it's a shelter, that's the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, okay. And then when I got there, it's nothing like you would, imagine. I didn't know my brother and my two sisters. They're my step-brothers and sisters, of course, but we were rather close, my stepmother and I. I refer to her as Mom. Even out of all of that, there was still something missing. I couldn't get along with them. One of the points was because, like I said, I was just getting what I wanted. I was spoiled. Well, I am spoiled. And that created a problem because I was used to being the only child.
Okay, I was used to the attention be directed to me, even though I know all of this. I mean, knowing is half the battle, but it's hard. Okay.
You feel then that a lot of it was a problem with you, not being able
With
to
me,
directly-
not my parents. I explained, we had a talk before I left. It wasn't like I just got up and ran away. They know where I am and everything. They told me they respect my judgment a lot because I didn't have them worried, you know, where I was going or just running away. I discussed it with my mom, dad, hey, look, I'm leaving. I don't think that I can abide by your rules, so I just would prefer to be on my own. I mean, there are rules and regulations here, but basically, on the whole, I'm more freer to express myself. Not that they didn't allow me to express myself. They were really lenient parents.
The biggest threat, probably in this area, the alcohol and drug abuse. There's all kinds of drugs right outside the door and up and down the street, and kids who are looking for to buy drugs or want to maintain their alcohol or drug habit. I think they could find it in the city on the street. So that's a big threat to a lot of them in terms of getting their lives together, and they have many setbacks, and one of the big reasons for that is they go back into the drugs and alcohol. And when that happens and kids are unable to meet their goals because of that, we do send them into community inpatient treatment programs and outpatient programs, as well as seeing our alcohol and drug specialists here. We're starting a group for children of addicts, which many of these kids are. That would be for 18 to 21-year-olds, and that's a real big need in this community because most adult children of alcoholic groups are for older adults. So we might send them to groups or provide groups for them here, or send them even to inpatient treatment. But I think drugs and alcohol are one of the biggest threats that they face.
You know, basically put you down. So you could be happy, and you can have a job and not really make anything, but if you don't have no money, no place to stay, then you'll find yourself losing things such as self-esteem, will, and good judgment. And you could start drinking, smoking, shooting, prostituting. Being my second job, being a peer educator, I go in contact with male prostitutes, women prostitutes, young youth, homeless youth, period, out there in the street, and basically give them AIDS awareness and basically pass out condoms. Now, I have a lot of personal clients that are really close to me, and I understand that because, I mean, it takes a lot for somebody to admit what they're doing. And once they have that, install that trust in you, then they're going to need you more or less if they're far gone, real far gone, especially. They could be doing heavy drugs and they're prostituting and living in hotels, but they're getting by. You know, they're happy with that. At least they're not starving. They can eat when they want to, and etc. A problem here is that a lot of kids are trying to play, I'm better than you, I'm doing this better than you. When I constantly stress to these children that it doesn't matter, because if you're doing better than me, then who's that better? You, not me. You're not making me upset at all. I'm happy for you, actually, because then if I don't see you around this place no more, that means what? Hopefully, number one, you got a job, you know, still, and you got an apartment, you're getting furniture, and you're getting your life back on a what, quote-unquote, normal basis.
The people that we serve are our future, and I think that if we don't provide them the tools to maintain, you know, where we are in the world, I don't think there's a hope for America. People tend to not believe that there are homeless youth out there, and the governor's task force in 1985 said that there were about 20,000 in the state of Illinois and about 10,000 in this area alone, and I believe that that number has significantly increased in the last few years.